Hi folks, welcome to Module 3. So I want to give you a walkthrough. I didn't type up the list of things to do this time. I thought it was kind of redundant for me to be writing things and then just to be talking to you. So I'm just going to talk to you about what's expected this week. So last week I pulled that lesson plan out because I thought it was too much for then. But now I'm reintroducing it here. And so again, I've rethought this because the emphasis is on digital tasks and learning deeply, thinking deeply about this. I don't want to take away from that, but I do want you to be able to work with creating good unit plans. So here's kind of, let me recap what I want you to do. I want you to create a scope and sequence for your instructional plan to get students ready to create a digital story. I want you to create a scope and sequence for your instructional plan to get students ready to engage in a web quest. I want you to create a detailed lesson for the introductory lesson for each of these learning events. That would be the digital story and the web quest. In at least one of those scope and sequences, embed a digital formative assessment tool. I'll be showing you some of those later on. In at least one of the scope and sequence, include at least one flipped lesson, and then use the digital platform for summative assessment. And again, the summative assessment can be the digital story and or the web quest. All right. I don't want you to do all this week, people. Don't panic. Okay, this is just kind of recapping what I'm expecting in terms of lesson planning. Okay, so I'm pulling back from having like every lesson done. All right, but I do want you to be able to create a scope and sequence and a detailed lesson plan. All right. But don't worry about that right now, okay? This is just overall. So if anything before this contradicts this, this is what it takes precedent now. Remember in the syllabus it says subject to change, all right? So this week, all right, I want you to look at an example of scope and sequence and an intro lesson plan because I'm asking you to do both of those this week, okay? The scope and sequence can be about, leading up to your digital story. It can be, I would think that would be what you want to do. It can be about leading up to your web quest, either one. I want you to look at this document on the where to considerations, and in my video I've talked about those a little bit more. I've given you a sample, example of a scope and sequence for my little unit on place of getting students to the digital story, and I've given you an alternative lesson plan format. The one that I gave you last time it's kind of complicated, and I think sometimes it has more than it's necessary. So I've given you another sample, different one that you're welcome to use, okay? So, and I've also given you a sample introductory lesson. I'll just click that so you can see what this looks like. All right, so I've used the more simplified lesson format, and here is my lesson plan, okay? All right. What you see here is in my scope and sequence, but I've divided it up for the lesson plan into what is the front loading and scaffolding, instructions and activities, closure and reflection. And I want all of these things addressed, okay? So that's the sample one, and I want you to spend some time with that. And here's the scope and sequence for writing about place that I've done the where-tos for. And again, you've got a video about that, so I'm not going to redo it here. This week I'm introducing you to web quests. So there's a video here that gives you the overview of the web quest. I'd like you to look at that, look at the links, and then this is a link to Zoodle, which is what you're going to use. It's all explained in the video, so watch the video first. And then part of the web quest, you're going to create a rubric for the web quest, and it will be embedded in the web quest. So here is a PowerPoint and a video about creating standards-based rubrics. Those of you in EDU 390 who are enrolled concurrently will get the same video in a couple of weeks. I use it for both classes. Okay, so take some time with this because proficiency-based rubrics are not always easy to wrap our head around. I've had a lot of questions about what do I do with my course management site? Well, nothing right now. Okay, but I'm not going to require anything right now. But I'm going to encourage you to continue experimenting with it to see what will happen. All right. The next module, I'll ask you to begin uploading some information for your class for this unit of study. But come to think of your CMS as your own little mini Blackboard where you're going to have resources, instruction, discussion, and assignment submission. All right. This is your discussion forum for this week. I'm asking you to look at this video and then engage in a conversation. And you just need to read the directions here. So for assignments, I want you to submit your revised unit of study template by October 8th. All of you need to do some revision. Okay, so make sure that you're getting those into me. I know that some have come in late, and I will get to those this weekend. I'm not going to get to them before the weekend, just because I have meetings and personal commitments. But I will get them done by the end of the weekend. I want you to decide on your digital professional development, and there's a discussion forum labeled for sharing that information, and I'd like you to share it there. You don't have to provide peer response in this forum unless you want to. But at the end of the module, I will look at that discussion forum to see what you've all decided to do. Okay. I want you to create the scope and sequence for your unit plan. I didn't mean that. I'm going to change that. It should be for your digital story or your web quest. Okay. And remember, think small, people. Okay. And I'd like you to submit that by October 8th as well for some feedback. I'd like you to create the introductory lesson in your group for feedback, and then share it with me by October 8th. Okay, this will be the introductory lesson to your digital story or your web quest. But I would suggest you do the digital story because that's the one that you created last week. Decide where your web quest is going to fit into your unit plan, whether it's going to be completed individually or in pairs and groups. And then, keep in mind that the purpose is to demonstrate proficiency in ISTE and content standards, using your backwood design, scope and sequence to help you organize your unit materials, create your web quest. Okay? And remember, you're using Zoonal for that. You'll share the link in your groups for feedback, and then you'll submit the link to me in Blackboard by October 12th. There will be more opportunity for revision if you need to. Okay? But it should be a fairly finished version. Here are your submission tabs for the template revision, scope and sequence, introductory lesson plan, and your web quest. And remember, I'm changing the language here. It should be for your digital story or your web quest. Okay? And so you have 2 weeks now to complete this work. Well, you have 1 week for some of it and 2 weeks for the web quest. All right? But I don't want us to get. I want you to be doing work throughout the 2 weeks, and these templates should be pretty much this next revision should pretty much do it, I hope. And then the scope and sequence. I want to give you opportunities to revise that as well. Remember what I said about lesson planning and unit planning. It's a very recursive process. So if you have questions, let me know. I've had some inquiries, and I appreciate students coming to see me and calling me and emailing me. Please, I'm here and available, and I'm more than willing to help you and to support you in your learning as we go along. So have a great 2 weeks, and I'll be talking to you soon.